say Penicillin Penny. She's the queen of the Sunset Strip. Well, if she ever gives you any, you better see your doctor real quick.
From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where you may now feel free to refer to me as a ruggedly handsome man in his 50s, and where another week has gone by in which one of the greatest living Americans has passed from our midst. Willie Howard Mays Jr., Westfield, Alabama, Private First Class, U.S. Army, winner, Presidential Medal of Freedom, National League Rookie of the Year 1951, National League Batting Champion 1954, National League MVP 1954 and 65, four-time home run champion, four-time stolen base champion, 12-time Gold Glove winner, 24-time All-Star, first ballot Hall of Famer, bona fide American legend, passed away on Tuesday at the age of 93. We tip our caps and bow our heads in memory of a great ball player and an equally great man. May he rest in peace. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radio. So glad you could join us this evening. Here is your Decline of Western Civilization News Roundup for the work week ending Friday, 21 June, 2024. Dateline Canberra, Monday, 17 June. Police in the formerly democratic nation of Australia were accused this week of violently repressing pro-democracy demonstrators who were protesting the official visit of Chinese Prime Minister Li Qiang. And I guess in the interest of equal treatment, they were also accused of roughing up a group of pro-communism protesters. The point being, the Australian government believes in fair play, by God. That means we brutally repress all forms of what people used to call protected political speech, irrespective of which side you're demonstrating for. And our goon squads, they play no favorites when they're deciding whose jaw to break with a rifle butt. It's fair dinkum right down the line, dadgummit, for every bloke and every Sheila. Prime Minister Chiang, second in power only to Xi Jinping himself, is the first Chinese premier to visit Australia since 2017, and evidently the Aussie government was very eager to demonstrate that they've gotten much better at communist-style free speech crackdowns in the intervening 7 years, and we thought California was bad. All they did was clean the poop off the streets and bus all the junkies and vagrants off to the suburbs. when Chairman Xi came to visit San Francisco. Prime Minister Chang's first stop on arriving in Australia was at the Adelaide Zoo, where he told an excited crowd that a brand new pair of giant pandas will be arriving soon. And if you know anything about the Chi-Coms, you know why the term panda diplomacy exists, because the Chi-Coms figured out a long time ago, to their credit, that pandas are the one thing everybody in the rest of the world loves that you can only get in China. So if you're in their good books and they're liking the cut of your jib, the way they show it is by giving your zoo a couple of pandas. If they think you're being too democratic and uncooperative, they take the damn pandas back and then eat them for dinner. Allegedly. Dateline London, Tuesday, 18 June. Reform UK Party leader Nigel Farage, who's currently riding a wave of public discontent that could well see the Tory party wiped off the political map entirely, and more quickly than anyone thought was possible, said this week that his movement and the party that represents it seeks to fuse the traditional with the radical through a renewed appreciation of British history and culture, combined with a realization that many of the country's governmental and political institutions are no longer fit for purpose and urgently in need of wholesale reform or outright abolition. And he also said a very, very naughty thing later on in the week, a thing that caused paroxysms of hysteria throughout the British fake news establishment, a thing that makes it absolutely imperative that he never, ever get his hands on the reins of power. And what was it? Well, he gently broached the possibility that maybe NATO's expansionism and provocations might have had something to do with precipitating the Russia-Ukraine war. And the frenzied reaction to this statement tells you quite a lot about how divorced from reality the people are who are supposed to be the journalistic establishment, because there should really be nothing remotely controversial about what Mr. Farage said. Some of us, many of us in fact, have been making the exact same point for a good number of years now. In fact, it was about 30 years ago, I think, the first time I ever found myself asking, how come the newest member of NATO is like 1,000 miles away from the North Atlantic? And for that matter, why is NATO expanding at all when there is no longer a freaking Soviet Union? Shouldn't NATO have disbanded itself the very next day after Christmas 1991 when the Soviet Union ceased to exist? And then there always is some idiot who calls me a Putin-loving Russian sympathizer when I say this, and I don't care. Here it comes anyway. From where this reporter is sitting, NATO is the greatest threat to peace in the Western Hemisphere presently, and the European Union is in second place. As far as Russia goes, well, they have failed to conquer their much smaller, much weaker neighbor. After 2.5 years of trying now, the only territory they hold is the areas of eastern Ukraine that are ethnically Russian anyway, and whether anybody wants to hear it or not, it is overwhelmingly likely that that is going to remain the status quo post-bellum. The conflict at this point is basically First World War trench warfare with an occasional drone and guided missile, and the Russian fleet? Well, their flagship is currently incapable of steaming under its own power, and their backup flagship got sent to the bottom because it failed to detect and interdict an attack from a 1982-era missile. So yeah, do tell me more about how NATO has to always get bigger and more odious and more provocative in order to counter the threat of a Russian bear that is missing one leg and has arthritis in the other three. Dateline Salisbury Plain, Wiltshire, Wednesday, 19 June. Idiots with orange paint vandalized Stonehenge this week in protest against... Christ, who knows? I mean, I'm pretty sure Neolithic age Britons weren't burning a whole hell of a lot of fossil fuels 4,000 years ago, so why is Just Stop Oil angry at Stonehenge? Unclear. But the intellectual incoherence of the act is not the point. The point is what this tells us about the worldview of the radical left here in the third decade of the 21st century. And it's not unique to eco-warrior idiots like these Stonehenge clowns, or animal rights idiots, or social justice race huckster idiots, or any other variety of dumb woke retard. What they all have in common is a deep-seated desire to attack and destroy all aspects of humanity's cultural and historic heritage. People like these Stonehenge fools, I call them the eco-Taliban because that is exactly what they are. The motivations may be different, but the end result is exactly the same. It is the wholesale, gleeful destruction of cultural heritage. The Bamiyan Buddhas were arguably the most important ancient colossal sculptural works anywhere in the world outside of Egypt that still existed at the beginning of this century. And dynamiting them to dust was number one on the Taliban's priority list when they first gained power in Afghanistan. They are un-Islamic, therefore they must be destroyed. And despite an outcry from every other country in the world, no argument for preserving them was ever seriously contemplated, because that is how religious fanaticism works. It doesn't brook any moderation or any half measures. The evil thing must be destroyed because it is evil. And in a very real sense, the eco-Taliban are even more fanatical and less restrained than the actual Taliban, because the actual Taliban, they at least have a theoretical limiting principle. They only want to blow things up that are offensive to their own interpretation of their own religion. The eco-Taliban, on the other hand, they want to destroy the entire cultural heritage of the entire human race, and they ain't picky. They will pull down monuments, vandalize statues, destroy painting. If it's a thing from history that people enjoy looking at, these people want to eradicate it. Because when you're at a museum looking at a nice statue or a nice painting, or when you're visiting Salisbury Plain and marveling at the engineering achievements of ancient humans who had neither the wheel nor the pulley, that is a distraction from the things your self-appointed intellectual overlords think you should be spending your time on. And since these are certifiably crazy people, they see a very simple solution to the problem. Just destroy the things people enjoy looking at, then we will have their undivided attention. And the most solemn responsibility we have as the generation that currently occupies the earth is to preserve our cultural heritage so it can be passed on to our descendants just as our ancestors passed it on to us. And we are beset with maniacs who seek to destroy that heritage that we are charged with safeguarding, and it is our moral duty to oppose them as strenuously as a thing can be opposed. Dateline Washington, Thursday, 20 June. In a bit of news that pretty much wrecks the last half-century of Democrat Party political strategery, an Equus poll released on Thursday shows that Latino voters, by a 3-point margin, favor Donald Trump's immigration policies over those of President and semi-animated cadaver Joe Biden. But wait, I hear you saying, didn't the Democrats conclude, like all the way back in the LBJ Great Society days, that if they went soft on immigration and jammed as many illegal aliens into the country as humanly possible, that all Latinos would love them forever and they would never lose an election? Well, yeah, they did conclude that, and they have been doggedly pursuing that vision ever since, but it would seem, surprise of all surprises, that Latino citizens aren't any bigger fans of mass illegal migration and the crime and drugs and economic instability that accompany it than non-Latino citizens are. I mean, who would have thought? And is there anything better than when a dumb racist assumption like that comes back to bite the Democrats in the ass? In the opinion of this reporter, no, there is not. In its write-up of the poll results, Axios reported, and I'm surprised Axios would even report on a poll like this, quote, once reliably Democratic voters, many Latinos are increasingly identifying as independent, and working-class voters are leaning more toward the GOP, end quote. Gosh, it's almost like law-abiding citizens don't like having their wages and prosperity artificially depressed by rampant criminality that's being promoted and facilitated by the party that claims to be the exclusive representative of the minority working class. It's almost like ordinary people just want a decent place to live and to raise their families and a fair chance at economic upward mobility. It's almost like those views don't change according to one's skin tone and ethnic heritage, and what a shock that is. Here I thought you could just stick people into boxes according to their external physical characteristics and then reliably predict their voting behavior for all time. The hell are we going to do now? I know, maybe we should have the president go on some podcast and say, if you can't figure out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't Mexican. Hell, maybe he could learn to say it in Spanish. Si no sabes si estás a favor de mí o de Trump, entonces no eres mexicano. Actually, on second thought, let's not have him do that. He has enough trouble with his own native language. And the last thing we need is another Si Se Puede incident, am I right? You're all as diverse as a bunch of breakfast tacos. The moral of the story in the end, nobody does Hispanic outreach like the Biden family does Hispanic outreach. No idea why those numbers are collapsing, guys. It's a real mystery. Dateline, aboard the Disney Death Star currently in orbit around planet Volveria, Friday, 21 June. In this week's Pride Month update, would you believe things have actually gotten worse for the Acolyte? The audience score is down to an astounding 14%, and it seems even the woke industry shill critics have given up on this piece of shit because even that number, which originally sat in the high 90s, is hovering down around 70% now. And it's just like Lyndon Johnson said about Walter Cronkite. If we've lost the woke industry shill critics, goddammit, we've lost America! But the star of this travesty, the magnificent mulatto herself, Amanda Stenberg, she's got this whole thing figured out. The Acolyte isn't a shitty show, and she isn't a terrible actress. She is a victim of racist, misogynist, homophobic review bombers and toxic white male fans. And damn it, she is mad as hell, and she is not going to take it anymore. And when the world has wronged you like that, when it cruelly backs you into a corner, when you want to set the record straight once and for all and totally own the haters, what do? Well, you write a terrible song and you show the world your vulva. I mean, in the damage control industry, I believe the technical term for it is the Madonna gambit. There's no PR disaster you can't fix by shoving your Mons Venus right in the world's face and shaking it like you just don't care. And look, I actually have to give credit where it's due here. In order to make a camel toe pop through a pair of denim shorts, you gotta have a major league set of meat curtains on you. And by all appearances, unless she was rocking some kind of a falsie under there, Miss Stenberg does indeed have a major league set of meat curtains. And as much as I would like to play certain parts of this video for you, not gonna risk it because this thing has been getting mocked so widely and so mercilessly that Disney has started copyright claiming people for using it, which is weird since Amanda claims that she wrote the song and shot the video all by herself in a period of 72 hours. So why would Disney be copyright claiming it, I wonder? Gosh, it's almost like they had this whole fake controversy planned out ahead of time and everything about this dumb, cringy video and song were done under the Disney Star Wars imprimatur. But nah, perish that thought. I'm sure this is all totally organic. Do you want to hear some of the lyrics? Yeah, of course you do. Quote, I was running from city to city to speak on a story, you know the one, police murdering a black boy. My people cried in the theaters, finding release. White people cried. They could see us as human beings. Trevor asked what I want the people to know. I say white people crying was the goal. If they could take one thing, what would it be? I say empathy. Ooh, that's why they mad at me. They splice lines, make hate they recognize, make it look like the same propaganda they spew because they conflate our pain with violence and try to weaponize everything that we do. The desperation of oppressors is rising, and now they holding on to any old thing they can use. If you rely upon misinformation, then that tells me you're afraid of the truth. End quote. Yeah, so that's a thing that exists. A thing that Miss Stenberg and all of her superiors at the Walt Disney Company somehow, someway decided was a good idea. I would love to see how that meeting went, wouldn't you? Okay, our new show is being called not just the worst ever Star Wars product, not just the worst ever Disney Plus show, but quite possibly the absolute worst thing in the history of audio-visual entertainment. What do you think we could do to make this even worse? I feel like if I went to ChatGPT and typed in, give me the absolute shittiest rap lyrics in the history of the world, it would vomit out something pretty close to this. So to recap, for those of you fans keeping score at home, Amanda Stenberg, 25-year-old half-black, half-Danish woman who hates the white half of herself with the burning hot intensity of 1,000 suns, raised in a lap of luxury and affluence of which 99% of the population can scarcely conceive, who's been on the payroll of the Walt Disney Company since the age of 4, says she is a victim, and you and I are her oppressors. Her proof? Well, she went to a black neighborhood, probably the first black neighborhood she's ever been to, and danced around like a retarded stripper, sticking her sex organs right up in the camera lens. And I think we've all learned never to mess with this strong black, well, sort of black, queer woman of color ever again, because she has clapped back on her haters, according to certain sectors of the woke fake news media, and I think we, her awful, hateful, bigoted critics who committed the dastardly crime of thinking a show that she was in sucked, are all as chastened as we well ought to be. Really, I think there's only one question remaining. Did those meat curtains come from her Danish side or her black side? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the week that was. May it rest in peace. And with that, I tossed it over to my illustrious colleague, your distinguished co-host, the man who is to large furry hominids what Dr. Edward Jenner is to smallpox, the one and only, your friend and mine, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Oh, I was just watching a video. How are we doing tonight, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Blast Radius. I have one question for you. What happens if you're 114 pounds and have a big mouth and walk around a downtown, where was she at? Fort Worth or Houston? I can't remember. It might have been Dallas. Carolina and Fort Worth was allegedly body slammed by a cop earlier, and the film exists. I hate to be that kind of guy, but she was snoring at the end of it. That's not good. You shouldn't snore because someone slapped you to the ground. That's unhealthy and bad. Thank you, Ajot. I'm going to bring him up here so he can thank you freaking properly, right? Because it's all you, boo-boo.
Ajot in the house with the $10 freaking super chat. How about that? That is exactly what I'm talking about. My internet thong. Thanks you, Ajot. Love you. Yeah.
If you put in another 10, he might helicopter for you.
It's true.
I will straight up run the bidding, start the bidding. I have no problem with that one, but thank you.
I bet I can do a better stripper dance than AOC.
I'm gonna suspect that AOC might have more experience than you, bro.
Did you see the weird gyrating she did at that event she did with Fire Marshal Jamal yesterday? That is some awkward gyrating, man. That girl, I mean, I don't want to say anything racist, but she has got the moves of a white girl.
No, survey says no, that's not racist because it's white. Blue Unicorn, welcome to the chat. It's good to see you, bud. We've got Ajot in here. She's already giving.
Hey, Blue, good to see you, buddy.
She clearly loves you more than she loves me.
Clearly.
We got Kevin Laos. Kevin Laos. Welcome to the chat. Queen Bird wishes you a happy birthday. Hope it's been a spectacular for you.
It has very like I was telling you backstage, the kids sprung a surprise party on us that neither of us had any inkling of a clue we were walking into. There was probably 50 people at the house. It was really quite amazing. And
I'm not a fan of surprise parties because
I've never had one. I think I liked it more than I might have imagined I would have liked it. But
I'm just saying that means they could plot your murder just as easily.
It's true.
It's a Watt Life birthday today too. Happy birthday, Watt Life.
Happy birthday indeed. So yeah, that was
got Irish road
and that's most of the story why I did the roundup live this week instead of pre-recording it like I've been doing, because I thought my plan yesterday was I wrote the roundup, then we're gonna go out to lunch, then I'm gonna come home and grab my shit and come back here to shoot the roundup and then go home and edit the roundup. But when I think I'm just going to grab my shit and turn around and leave, I walk into a surprise party, and so that's what I spent the next 6 hours doing after that.
Casey May says happy 50th.
Thanks, Queen Bird. Love you, sweetheart.
And ATL has joined the chat along with Matthew King. Welcome in, everybody. Good to see you. We got Blue Unicorn who just showed up. It says Capitan.
Yep. Good to have Blue here.
Okay, so
So do we want
interesting
to watch the? Go ahead.
it's been an interesting week, brother. Like strange things and strange times, if I'm not mistaken. Where is the logic in putting paint on a 5,000-year-old rock?
It is an outstanding question.
There's two things that can happen here. We could merely ignore it, and weathering and time will eventually do what it does, or an attempt could be made to clean it. This attempt will inevitably spark more outrage, and it'd be like trying to clean the Mona Lisa, even if someone did throw freaking spaghettios on it.
I saw a column today in the Atlantic, of all places, by a guy who's a very woke, like climatologist, environmental studies professor type, and he echoed a point that I've been making quite a bit lately, which is that the environmental eco warrior left is increasingly animated by a hostility toward the human race itself.
Yeah. In general, all aspects of it. These are the same people who are promoting the use of things like Plan B, along with contraception and abstinence and abortion, and they just want people to stop breeding, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, and some of the policies that excite them most and they agitate most passionately on behalf of are all things that result in fewer human beings existing.
Exactly. But I don't really have a whole lot of sympathy for them, and I don't hold out a whole lot of hope for them for this one reason. They are the type of sickness that really only perpetrates itself for a single generation. We will go forth and multiply as our creator intended.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And they will have to recruit your children, and you will have the ability to fight back with rational thought.
Yeah, and it's no accident that stuff like that happens as often as it does. Like, what people who are childless by their own choice, they very, very much want to parent other people's children, especially, I would submit, public school teachers who have gone completely over the deep end of madness with the inculcation of very extreme left-wing ideas upon small public school children, and to the point where I would submit lots of harm is being done to lots of little people.
They're called children. You stand. I said what I said in a minute. Yeah, no, I mean it's obvious that the larger portions of the various departments of government have gone awry. They have gone astray. They are utilizing reinterpretation of laws in order to invent codes that you can violate. The ATF's doing it. The EPA's doing it. Just about every single branch of government out there has extended its interpretation of the language of the law, which is not how law works.
Oh, speaking of one of our big culture war controversies from this week, what's your view on Louisiana putting the 10 Commandments up on the wall in classrooms?
I'm not particularly adverse to it. As long as we're not instituting a prayer at the beginning of the day or nothing like that, and you're not forcing children to swear on a stack of Bibles or nothing. You can, but you got to keep in mind now, this is the very same type of thing that in various urban centers where there were 10 Commandment monuments, they were toppled over. So you can't really expect it to physically stand for long, although it's not a bad idea. It's at least handy to keep those things around, you know?
The thing about it that I found particularly striking was that the people who react with the most shock and revulsion an opposition to the idea of the Ten Commandments being on a public school classroom wall are the same people who have been agitating for most of the last decade to get more gay porn and drag queens into public schools and more pride celebrations and all that stuff. So it's an interesting compartmentalization of morality, I think.
It really is. And I wonder, and it's always bothered me, I wonder, the people that are actually putting this into praxis, the individuals like in the mid tier of your local board of education, right?
Yeah.
These people have to have kids in the school. How do they justify that to themselves in their head? Are they fully indoctrinated into this concept of oppression that skin color is, I don't know what, I don't even know. I don't get it. I don't see how skin color matters on anything. If I'm hiring someone to cut my grass, I want the best guy I can afford. I don't care if he's the lawnmower man himself.
Yeah, well, we have a shocking number of very anti-intellectual ideas that are being pumped directly into the veins of little kids in public schools today. I mean, there's just no other way to put it, really. It's pretty extreme, pretty shocking stuff. And in fact, in the county just north of us, Riverside County, the city of Temecula, they just recalled their school board president because he's a Christian and not really on board with all of the pride flag, purple haired, lip pierced, hooray for the gay, that the whole routine that pretty much forms the intellectual mainstream of the public school curriculum here in the third decade of the 21st century. I mean, let's just call things what they are.
You want some good news?
Yeah.
So the Overton window has been shifting left for the past, 25, 30 years?
Oh, yeah.
Steadily, too. Like, up until about 2016, there wasn't even a hiccup on it. In fact, Donald Trump ran on a platform that would have been virtually identical to a mid-'80s liberal.
Yep.
Just to keep you on the freaking same page with me. So eventually, right, the pendulum has to swing the other way. There's no two ways about it. So in North Carolina, seems they're going to go nuclear. And we've got Mr. Adam Post over here who did a much better video than I could have put together because he's been doing it longer. So check this out, man, and tell me if you don't feel like something's in the air between the absolute trash of Acolyte and this happening. This is just listen.
Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering North Carolina colleges go nuclear, fire DEI staff, cancel pronouns, and all diversity statements. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure.
How does that sound, dude?
You had me by the first two words.
Right?
None of that.
Yep, canceling pronouns entirely. Not a thing.
Yeah, and this is we're starting to see more and more stories like this, which leads me to be encouraged, like we were talking about before, that the tipping point may have finally been crossed.
Yeah, I mean, I pray that the Rubicon's been made, man. I'm not a real big fan of hard right wing swings either.
No, that is the depressing part about the fact that the Overton window has swung now so far left and for so long that it sometimes seems inexorable, because the longer and the farther that window goes over, all it does is create a more severe backlash when it inevitably boomerangs back to the other side. And I don't want to live in a right-wing dominated society any more than I want to live in a left-wing dominated one.
Right, left, it's all oppression when you get to the extremes of it. Quite frankly, there's no two ways about it. All right, so
yes, and people on both fringes of the spectrum are equally desirous to impose their set of views about the world on everybody else, whether they deny it or not.
So, just so everybody knows, I might be slightly right wing of Attila the Hun because I think everyone should do what I say. But if we're not going to do that, I really like the concept of like a constitutional republic. That seems to be the most fair way to handle it, bro. I mean, representatives, and we talk it out, and there's none of this deep swamp creature BS in the background and slush funds and islands of miners that don't actually produce minerals. You know what I'm saying? It all swings.
And let's get rid of the god awful 17th Amendment while we're at it.
If you are subscribed to the channel, click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys.
He's got stuff.
It's not just Iowa, Alabama, Texas, Florida, and more. Now it's North Carolina. Coming from Inside Higher Education, UNC Systems control DEI demolition. The University of North Carolina System Board of Governors voted to repeal the system's DEI policy. And from Fox News, University of North Carolina moves to ban diversity, equity, and inclusion statements in anti-woke backlash. This is the same university.
How does that sound, bro? That's exactly
Pretty
the way
beautiful.
It should, right? You just pretty much you're gonna have to get it.
And I just want to send this message out to Henry Rogers, the artist currently known as Ibram X. Kendi. I hope you got some money socked away, dude. I hope you saved some of those millions because I'm guessing your little white guilt seminars are going to start being much less heavily attended. I mean, that whole central thesis that guys like that build their worldview around that says you can fix racism hundreds of years ago by being a racist today. Good luck selling that product, dude.
The unicorn got me with that one. He wrote a sentence with no pronouns in it, asking how we can deal with it, like not just not using pronouns and like.
Well, yeah, and he makes an outstanding point because that is often the way it winds up sounding when people use woke neo pronouns or whatever the fuck they're called. You wind up with a completely distinct language that is increasingly untethered to English.
Yeah, I've seen you do this too. Sometimes he speaks in only proper nouns, which is it seems exhausting to me, bro. Like, I get it, but at the same time, it just seems tiring. Soft-spoken auditor. I appreciate you coming
Captain Curmudgeon thinks Blue Unicorn makes an outstanding point.
Caucasian Sasquatch thinks Captain Curmudgeon makes an excellent point about Blue Unicorn making a salient point. This too, damn it, let me come over there.
System that lost the case in the Supreme Court trying to defend affirmative action in college admissions. It wasn't just Harvard, it was also UNC. From NBC News, Supreme Court strikes down college affirmative action programs. The ruling is the culmination of decades of effort to end the consideration of race in admissions. And when they lost that case, they had to pay the winner over $4 million. From Reuters, exclusive, UNC pays anti-affirmative action group, that's Edward Blum's group.
Do I hear this pendulum shifting?
I think you do.
I swear to God, dude, it's like it's hanging suspended. It's like it's not actually dropping yet. You know what I'm saying? It's just
like the sword of Damocles.
Exactly, the sword of Damocles. That is exactly what I was thinking about. That and the telltale heart, because
$4.8 million after U.S. Supreme Court loss. And then, of course, they were forced, because they lost the case, to get rid of affirmative action in their college applications process. From the Associated Press, with affirmative action out, North Carolina's flagship school bans use of race and sex in admissions. And now the latest news, UNC Systems control demo.
Okay. I will cotton to a very small part of this whole shenanigans. Some affirmative action was useful from the 60s to about the mid 80s to early 90s. Right around then, things started changing from being a affirmative action approach in getting Black workmen into the workforce in areas where there weren't black workmen to be in the workforce. And so there was an incentive to kind of disseminate the population a little bit further through the rurality of the country. That I see as a benefit from this whole plot and plan. But once you get into the intentional diversity and inclusion, the only way you can be inclusive is by stating there is one group that is excluded.
Yes. And they try and get around that rhetorically, but there's you can't really ultimately.
Yeah, no.
I mean, did you see the James O'Keefe video from this week of the senior Disney producer talking about how they just don't hire white dudes, period?
Oh, yeah, no, I've got it saved over here, but I haven't actually watched it yet. I've had a lot of
you should. We should play that. That's a good one. I guess he really wanted this girl to. I guess he wanted the date to end well because he was spilling some stuff you shouldn't spill on a first date, buddy. You were going to be in lots of trouble with Mr. Iger.
Yeah, no, this is not gonna go well. So where do you see this going? In the sense of if the colleges can't police their admissions based off of these numbers, what are they going to use? Are they literally just going to?
Well, they will try to invent plausible deniability to keep doing it, but pretend they're not. And I think that's really what's happening already in the. I think at Harvard, the Harvard Board of Regents shut down some of their DEI stuff, but the institution is so invested with people who are true believers in this religion that it's not like they're gonna start following a different set of rules just because it's a different set of rules. These people think it is their job to make the world a better place, and so they think this DEI stuff is their mission from God. They're going to keep doing it one way or the other by hook or by crook until you actually get rid of them and get them the hell out of the institution.
Possible.
And it's not a word you should have to use, but there needs to be a purge. There needs to be one big motherfucker of a purge in the universities.
They don't believe in God.
They think they are irreligious, but they are the biggest religious fanatics on the face of the earth.
I got another little story.
Greetings and salutations.
Got another little story over here. Did you know that there's a proposed Skid Row homeless shelter over on the Skid Row region of San Francisco?
Mm-hmm.
You heard anything about that?
Yes.
All right. So what we
and it was LA actually, but it doesn't matter.
Well, it is LA. My bad. I don't know. I'm East Coast. Couldn't tell you. Might be able to look out.
Well, yeah, and would you believe I actually got a call from that builder wanting our company to bid that job, and we are obviously more than 100 miles away from LA, but I keep getting more and more bid invitations for things in Los Angeles because certain sections of that city are so far gone and nobody wants to go there that they can't even get anybody to bid the jobs when you try and build something there. And how they got this thing built, I don't have the faintest idea, but I guarantee you that story is going to end with an insurance fire. I would bet my life savings on it.
Right. Well, this is the actual Justice Warrior, and I'm gonna run this one through pretty quickly. We're gonna do the full 11 minutes on this one because it's all a salient point, and I love the way he uses Anna.
Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about this grand opening of a high-rise with really expensive apartments in Los Angeles for the Skid Row community in order to get the homeless people off the streets, because it's absolutely ridiculous. The time that it took to build this is insane, and again, the cost per unit, absurd in every possible way. Now, we're going to get into this. We're going to talk about this. But before we do, thank you to everyone who signed up on actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Oh, give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
Happening today, a grand opening for a high-rise homeless shelter featuring apartments with skyline views, a gym, even a cafe.
Now, look, I want to make something clear for everybody out there in the audience.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. He did say this is for a homeless community.
Yes. I wonder how it I wonder what the homeless gym is going to look like on the 4th or 5th day. I'm guessing just all the equipment covered in feces and vomit. Just a guess.
And people. Don't forget the people. They're still there.
And for those of you who are not even out there in the audience, I don't hate homeless people. Despite what people will say on the internet.com whenever you criticize any of these government programs, I got nothing against them as long as they're not causing additional problems. But the state of California just built up a high-rise in Skid Row with skyline views, its own cafe, a gym in it for the homeless people. And again, when you hear how much these apartments cost, when you hear the amount of money that was put in per unit, it's going to blow you away.
We're going to show you what 160.
How much you reckon?
Do you think they're going to call the cafe the Shea Hobo?
$600K per unit.
Oh god, we can do this all day.
Right? Yeah, no, we can. We can. it's kind of low hanging fruit, but
yep. It's my birthday, goddammit. I'll take the low hanging fruit.
There you go.
$5 million will get you. It's considered affordable housing, but the cost to build this type of a project, it still adds up. Each unit costs nearly $600,000. And it's
how much fentanyl can you get for a 10-pound barbell, I wonder?
Okay. All right. So we're building luxury high rises for the homeless.
Yes.
Interesting.
It's being funded by taxpayers.
Okay. So
wait. How is it not private property?
I believe originally the builder was just building a high rise of however many units it is, and it wasn't supposed to have anything to do. I think this was an intervention by the city of Los Angeles, like a pilot program. Like we're gonna take over this building that somebody is gonna put up anyway, and we're gonna stick vagrants inside the units. And somehow the builder and the subs all got paid. I mean, I don't know how that arrangement all works out. We know every unit in the building is going to be completely trashed within the first couple of weeks. There's no way around that. And
so,
but then of course, obviously the other thing is once the city gets involved and thus makes it a government job, then you have to pay all your labor prevailing wage, which probably made the price explode by double.
So is this a situation of something resembling eminent domain, or is it a situation where a person with a property and a building?
It is. I think your first guess is probably the closest one. I would probably describe it as something resembling reverse eminent domain, even where the.
I'm asking, is this going to be an insurance write-off for the person building the building? Did they just get out of debt?
And that's why I'm so inclined to believe there's going to be some type of insurance fire that ultimately brings down the structure, because it's going to get it will take well less than a year for everything in the building to be trashed beyond repair. I mean, let's just be realistic. And so then, and I'm guessing the city is going to find a way to dump all of those costs onto whoever the building manager winds up being, which is probably a company that is associated with the builder, because that's how these things usually work out.
All right, bud. Let's check it out. See what he's got to say about it. Because all I did was like go over all the high spots, and it seems dirty as hell to me. And that's not a pun. I'm not even talking about those people. I'm talking about the people.
Yeah, nothing happens in LA that's not dirty as hell.
So right there, you just got a bit of a taste of the numbers. First and foremost, $165 million to build this high rise. And this high rise is not for luxury Angelinos. It's not for middle class Angelinos. This is what the government spent based on a prop that they voted in 2016, Prop HHH, which means it took 8 years to spend $165 million on this property. Now, you guys probably already know this, but I feel like I have the need to say it. The Empire State Building was built in under a year. At that point in time, it was the tallest building in the world, and it was built in under a year. Now, with all of the modern technology in the nearly 100 years since the construction of the Empire State Building, a high-rise that pales in comparison to its size was built for $165 million over the course of 8 years by the taxpayer. So already we're talking about an absolute disaster, a total boondoggle, a complete waste of money. And then when you hear that
Wait a second. Did he say 10 years? 8 years? And 165 million in 8 years.
And we know that no rents are going to be collected from the residents on any sort of monthly basis. So the only other arrangement there can be is that the city is actually going to be paying market rate rents on behalf of these vagrants that are trashing these units, which, you know, is an interesting way of solving the homeless problem, I think.
I don't think it solves anything. I mean, first of all, consider this. When you're building a building, from the time you lay the foundations, the clock is ticking. That thing will shift and move over time. And while you're constructing it is one of the most dangerous periods of time for a building to be raised. The likelihood of there being absolutely no negative impacts of the freaking earthquakes over the past 10 years in LA.
Well, and plus, I mean, every building permit, especially for a building like that, contains a clause where the builder has to finish by a certain date, or he starts incurring penalties for every day he doesn't finish the thing, and the penalties get more odious the longer it's not finished. So, yeah, there definitely is some form of eminent domain at work here, and just an astounding waste of taxpayer dollars, just in a variety of different ways at the same time. Just an absolute magnum opus of governmental incompetence.
My point is this: 165 million for a high rise in LA would be the going rate for a building today. But they spent that in 8 years of construction and have not completed it. That's not a thing. You would put it up in a year and a half tops, because you'd want it to skinned over so that it could defend itself against the elements before the elements get to it. At this point, you've got concrete out there that's been exposed for 8 years.
And that's exactly why in 1930, you can build the Empire State Building in 13 months without any loss of life. But today, you can't build anything that quickly because the regulatory state that we have erected is so huge and so odious and so impenetrable that it is well nigh simply impossible anymore to get things built on time and under budget. It can't be done.
Absolutely.
Individual apartment costs $600,000 a piece, or nearly $600,000 a piece. You realize the absolute absurdity. And by the way, for those of you out there in the audience who are wondering about that California article or the breakdown of how they wasted over $24 billion addressing the homelessness crisis, and that money seems to have done nothing and it's completely unaccountable. It's stuff like this that money ends up going to, jacking up the cost for construction firms that are well connected, all the different environmental impact studies and lawsuits that you have to go through in order to build anything. And this high rise is completed again for the drug addicts at Skid Row to move into.
Take a look at the images here. There are 278 units in this 19-story development known as the Weingart Tower. It's intended to help people currently without shelter on Skid Row. This will be LA's largest permanent supportive housing project.
Now, look, 278 rooms is nothing to sneeze at. Under normal circumstances, if a developer were to put that up, that's going to house a lot of people. But remember, this cost $165 million.
Except it's not, because nobody wants to move to that neighborhood. Because between the time the permit was issued and construction started and construction gets close to finishing, that neighborhood has undergone that many more years of degradation and filth and human suffering and crime, and because that area It ain't getting any better. It only gets worse.
But no, that's the thing I don't understand here. These are not units for rent. These are apparently going to be units made available. What's up, John DeNicola? Good to see you, bud. Just made available.
Yeah, the original intent was we're just building a couple buildings for ordinary people to come live in, and then that stops being an option when the entire area around the buildings is fucking Skid Row.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to go down there except at the risk of their life. And so then, like, you either have to knock down the unfinished buildings or have the city take them over and figure out some kind of other thing to do with them, which is what we're looking at right here, basically.
Right. So it just becomes public housing with no consideration of cost. Right. Okay.
Yep.
And it's supposed to service the homeless people in Los Angeles, specifically in Skid Row, to which there are thousands of them. So while you might help 278 people, maybe if you're allowing families in there, you can get that number closer to 750 if you add 3 people per household, which I don't believe is going to be the case. But the fact of the matter is, if you would have taken the $600,000 per unit and then gave 10% of that to homeless people, you would give them $60,000 and they might be better off for that, especially if you buy into the myth, like a lot of left-wingers do in California, that homeless people just fell on sharp times. They just got an unexpected expense and then they ended up on the street. Well, if those people actually exist and they represented a significant portion of the homeless population, then you could have given them a jump start, a little bit of a cash infusion, and those who are supposedly just a couple of payments away from being housed would have been able to be housed. You didn't have to waste all of this money on this luxury building in Skid Row that, again, only services 278 households. I'll be generous and not say people, households.
There is an entire floor of offices for caseworkers, and the list of amenities is pretty impressive. As you mentioned, there's a gym, an art room, a music room, and a computer room and library. People living here will enjoy 6 common balconies and a cafe. The $165 million project is receiving permanent financing from Proposition HHH, which voters overwhelmingly passed in 2016.
So where the money actually goes is incredibly important. What these luxuries are for, also incredibly important. And obviously what this is a
All right. A significant portion of the homeless use drugs. That is not
an overwhelming portion.
A significant portion, at least, overwhelming perhaps. A significant proportion of homeless should be on drugs. The problem is the people that are on drugs are not on the drugs they should be on, and the people that are not on drugs are not on the drugs they should be on. So
we closed down the mental hospitals, and we shouldn't have done that.
We should not have done that.
Fancy new office for the caseworkers in the homeless industrial complex to operate out of that is equipped with a cafe for the caseworkers, a gymnasium for the caseworkers, and all these different other various things that theoretically are luxuries or excesses for the homeless, but in reality are going to be luxuries and excesses for the people who are dealing with the homeless and profiting off of the perpetuation of the homelessness crisis. In reality, the people that are addicted to opioids on Skid Row, they're not going to go run on the treadmill and have a good time. You know what would be funny, though? If they started stealing the gym equipment, stealing the computers in order to hawk that, in order to make money.
We called that one already.
Because none of this addresses the issues of these people, like
honest,
mental health
they
and
haven't
whatnot
already done
that
it.
they're dealing with. Instead,
they quite possibly have.
On this really nice building with really nice apartments that only people who are likely to destroy the building and the apartments are going to live in. And I feel really bad, genuinely so, for the actual family that has no mental health issues, that has no drug issues, that is going to be moved into one of these Skid Row apartments that's going to be surrounded by crazy people, because that's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to want to move. You are actually going to see, and I kid you not, people reject these shelters because of the other people that are in the shelters, because that's how unsound this plan actually is.
The new tower is also receiving.
I blame communism. The concept that you can take a person and make a cog out of them and just unplug one person and put in another person and everything will be okay.
Yes, that you simply can take a person and change their circumstances and they will start being another person. And that's just not the way the world works.
Receiving state housing funds and $56 million in state tax credits.
Look, I don't want to be the guy who harps in on irrelevant details, but the thing is, I am that guy, and I do want to be the person who harps on irrelevant details. And one of the funniest parts about all these artistic renderings or images that are meant to promote this property that come from the developer is that even though this is clearly and obviously intended to be for people who live on Skid Row, who again have a lot of drug problems, who look absolutely filthy, they didn't even take the time to not put in the stock images of people or the staged images of people on this property, because right here you have a lovely 40s, maybe 30s-year-old couple that look like they work in the tech sector. And again, this is supposed to be housing for the homeless, the people on Skid Row. But wow, they're going to turn them into these people by just getting them into the system. Maybe that's what they're trying to portray. But in reality, they just didn't care. They swindled this money from the taxpayers.
$165 million project is receiving permanent financing from Proposition HHH, which voters overwhelmingly passed in 2016.
Prop HHH, if you heard, it gave them permanent financing for this particular project. And over the course of 8 years, California construction firms and all these different various groups were able to suck up all that money. And guess what? The drain is not over. They are going to have to pay through the nose to maintain these buildings. I got a fiance who works in commercial real estate. We have this program where you have these affordable units mixed in with the regular ordinary units, and developers have to set aside these units in order to build more luxury units. And guess what ends up happening? The people that move in, especially at the really low rents, and by the way, these people are not supposed to be as proportional as drug users as the people on Skid Row, absolutely destroy and obliterate the place and cause all these different maintenance problems for the people who own these buildings. Well, guess what? That's going to be increased tenfold right here, because each and every one of these tenants is supposedly going to be one of these people. Now, one of my favorite things that will likely occur as a result of this is that some of the people on Skid Row that get into these apartments, some of the homeless that actually just want.
Do you believe any of them are actually going to get into those apartments, or is it going to be hand-picked show families like a Nielsen family,
like a Potemkin village?
A Potemkin, yes, exactly. A Potemkin group of families to put in here and show how well it works.
I want to read out this Andy Pickle comment because Andy just hit it out of the park. How about at each EV charging station, you hook up a series of stationary bikes hooked up to generators, homeless get paid to charge up your cars. Boom, there it is.
Right. But no, that would be inhumane. Slavery. Can't do that. Forced servitude, dude.
Yep.
Although, I mean, crackhead volunteers
want to be on the streets are probably going to sublease this to regular Angelinos who don't want to pay for the expensive cost of living, and that's how they're going to support their drug habit. There's so many different ways, honestly, that this could spiral out of control. I cannot wait for the taxpayers of Los Angeles to regret each and every ballot that they issued in favor of this.
The grand opening set for later this morning. Several elected officials are going to be there, including Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass.
Now, of course, all the politicians are going to be there for the ribbon cutting ceremony, because the ribbon cutting ceremony is the most fun part for the politicians. They're not going to be there for the fun of all the crime and all the problems that this is going to cause. But this guy says, oh, this is just the beginning, because there's another tower on the way. It says it's a year away, but it's under construction right now, and I can't wait to see how much that will cost.
And guys, this is really just the beginning. There's more planned. Another tower more than a year away, but it's under construction.
Now, look, we've covered a lot of different projects like this out of the state of California.
All right, so this is what I'm hearing. Los Angelinos, we stole a lot of money from you, but we built you this nice tower over here in the worst part of the city that nobody wants anyway. Nobody's going to live there, so let them live there. But there's good news. We're going to screw you even more and build you another tower over in the pork chop district or whatever it is, where these other people are that you also don't want to be there. So, but it's going to be luxury high rises. I guarantee it's going to be a Potemkin situation. And In 2 years, there'll be armed security out there walking freaking streets trying to keep it clear.
And it'll be the worst shady housing project situation you've ever seen in your life.
Cabrini Green ain't got nothing on Skid Row.
Damn straight.
Another one of these buildings actually had the units balloon to over $800,000 in cost, but that one hasn't opened. But based on the way that they're using the resources of the taxpayer, this is not a solution. $165 million in order to house, again, the families maybe of 278 people. This won't help anything. It's not going to create anything positive long term because they're not addressing the actual issues that these people are dealing with. Also, there's all these extra rights and extra protections for people who are homeless, want to remain homeless in the state of California, in the entire West Coast, actually, that comes from the Ninth Circuit. And until the Supreme Court overturns that, they're kind of hamstrung in what they can do, not to mention all the additional things passed at the local level and the state level in order to aid the homelessness crisis or aid the homeless people in making it a crisis in Los Angeles and in California as a whole. But I wanted you to see it. I wanted you to see how beautiful this building is that only the people who do problems in our society are allowed to have access to. And of course, the social workers who get a high-tech, comfortable, Google-like office space for themselves so that you guys can react to it. Now, as usual, if you like the video, show them by leaving a like.
So what you think about that, bro?
He just brought up right at the end the central fatal misapprehension that causes every well-meaning person on the left to get homelessness completely wrong. And it's the idea that all homeless people don't want to be homeless. And that is simply not correct. The lion's share of people who are homeless, they are homeless because they enjoy sitting around getting high all day. And they when people are facilitating that lifestyle and enabling them to continue living on the street getting high all day, they are going to continue living on the street getting high all day because that is their preferred mode of existence.
True. As far as individuals who find themselves in a particularly short end of the stick category, one of the issues is that there are so many of these professional homeless people in the system professionally living off of the homeless situation, the crisis, if you will, that there's
and so many billions of dollars get pumped into those sleazy NGOs whose reason for existing ultimately winds up being making sure homeless people have lots of drugs to do so they can continue being homeless. That's what it often comes down to.
How would you feel if we went over Homeless Inc. next week? Have you seen
I'd be
that?
into that. Yep. It's an important topic that doesn't get discussed enough.
All right. I'll go dig it up. I might do
because
some
we find a way to build industries and bureaucracies around every single thing. And we're often not even aware of it when we're doing it.
It's anything in an inner city. If it makes it to a city, it becomes an industry before it gets there.
Yep.
So if you're talking,
and it's already fit for purpose, and they got the whole machine. You just got to get in and turn the key.
Right. So when you're talking about the homeless situation, you're talking about a system who derives its money from the existence of people who are destitute and incapable of living inside of a structure because they can't afford it. And so the tendency is to create structures that aren't permanent or locations that they can't stay permanently. And so more people show up trying to get rooms than there are rooms, and you end up with a homeless problem in the area that these places are set up to try to help the homeless. It's a horrific feedback loop that is obvious and automatic. It's something that you do because you might be able to get help over there, but at the same time, there's a massive number of professional homeless people on the East Coast.
Yeah, and in a lot of cities here in California, they've taken the approach of building those ridiculous tiny little micro homes, I believe they're called, and nobody wants to live in the damn things. Can you imagine? because they don't let you come on to the site and then sleep in one of the micro homes if you're on drugs or if you have alcohol. And you tell me how that's going to work out.
Well,
okay, you're welcome to use this homeless community, but you can't be high or drunk.
I don't have a huge problem with a caveat like that. An individual trying to get his shit together should probably stop getting high and drunk before he tries to apply to a program like that, because you're going to have to be straight enough to maintain a job and wake up at time and go to work and do the work and go home and survive it. And you have to do it without the dope, dude. It has to be done. Mental health issues is an issue as well. Just because a person's sober doesn't mean that they could actually care for themselves. And when we closed down our asylums, we turned out thousands upon thousands of just under the wire people that can't quite care for themselves. Now their parents have died, their siblings, most of them have died, and we've got a elderly batch of boomers running around out there with mental illness issues and no care. And it's no good, man. It's no good. And that problem is only going to proliferate as we continue to have more and more older people and fewer younger people to take care of them. And pretty much every country in the Western world, plus China, plus Japan, they're all going to be dealing with that. So some of them are going to be even more extreme than we are in the next 10, 20, 30 years. It's going to get pretty ugly. You got any bits you want to do?
No, I'm up for anything.
Okay. What I've got up next is our good buddy Acorn Stash has a new group of memes that he's released. And I figured we'd go through them. I like the way this man talks.
Who stole
Darn it, do it right, Sasquatch, or don't do it at all. I'm telling you, I like to keep my audience riveted. Push all the buttons.
Chicago cop's car and ran him over, found not guilty, despite it all being on video.
And that's the world you live in.
I love the timbre of his voice.
Oh, it's good. He's good. He's good. We had a whole bunch of conversation in comments back when he only had like 15 subscribers. And I was like, dude, if you had a better mic, you'd be killing it. Now he's killing it.
Yeah, that was the other first thing I noticed.
Car gone. I've done everything right, cries driver fined $700 after his car was stolen. He has to pay for the thief's actions. A driver was held responsible for hundreds of dollars in road infractions, even though authorities knew the vehicle had been stolen. A Hyundai...
Wow. Can you imagine it? Hello, Sarah. Welcome in. Good to see you. Hello, Sarah. Hi. Hello. Are you drinking box wine tonight? I hope so. It would be neat to come across you somewhere out there. We could talk.
All the cool kids are drinking box wine.
Apparently, man. Woo. That stuff be right. I can't drink wine. It did make my belly
Me
sour.
either. Yeah.
Sonata raced by school zones, went 100 miles per hour in a 35 mile per hour zone, and was totaled by a teenager, authorities said. But the owner was still on the hook for the road fines. We're living in idiocracy. Like I've said before, it just gets dumber and dumber every day.
He's not wrong. He is
when I hear a guy talk that way, it makes me want to talk that way.
Disney senior vice president caught on camera claiming company hires based on race and believes it's just
there. It
good.
is. That's the thing I was mentioning before.
And this isn't even talking about the actors in the movies. They're even talking about executive positions in the company itself.
Yep.
Surgeon General demands warning label on social media apps. Inside every neocon, there are two wolves. One wants World War III. The other isn't willing to actually fight in World War III.
I missed that one the first time through, I guess.
This should absolutely be a requirement. If you speak out demanding war, or
Yeah, that's a
if you're
good
in
one.
position to vote for war, then you, your children, or grandchildren should be the first ones to go. But instead, it's completely the opposite. They're the ones that never will go.
Hey, I would like everybody that's in the audience right now, if you would share this stream to your least popular Facebook group, your Scientology group, the one that you never put anything in. Just drop it over there and don't answer any questions about it, unless you want to tell them Sasquatch sent you, and that would be acceptable, because
The
they
one
don't
that's got all the people in it that you never actually talk to.
Yes, that's the one. Or just group message. Just drop it into
Yeah.
a random group chat. That would be good too. Well, okay. Use MySpace, Sarah.
Even when the draft isn't stated. U.S. bans on gasoline-powered leaf blowers grow, as does blowback from landscaping industry.
Mexicans everywhere cry.
You guys heard of this stupidity yet? They're trying to ban all two-cycle engines. This article is talking about leaf blowers, but the next thing will be string trimmers, and there's some places already trying to ban lawnmowers as well, demanding that all these things are moved to only battery-powered equipment. People cheating on their taxes disgust me. This is not the world I want to raise my 23 dependents in.
I just had a flashback
well played, my friend.
to the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, where they're getting paid for singing into the can. Yeah, but Aloysius and Tommy, they're going to have to just sign X. Either one of them, right? Two guys that don't exist.
Oh, dear me.
I can't today. I'm busy watching the season finale of the United States.
Fuck me, Art. God, man. Yes, that's facts. I call it
Yeah.
the Pax Americana. Welcome to the Pax Americana, folks. You're living through it right now. A little bit more disgruntledness, a little bit more disarray. We lose the internet. It becomes just like Terminator 3, right? Really
Yep,
bad.
And we are succeeding in getting to idiocracy 500 years sooner than scheduled.
Ain't that right? What's up, Citizen Knock? Good to see you, all. And honestly, could you ask? Couldn't happen to a better country.
And now for my next trick, I will give you 3 $600 checks, and the next year I will crash your 401k, and you will pay $2,000 more in property taxes or rent, $800 more for gas, and $3,000 more for groceries.
Yep.
Modern video games
Yep.
are giving kids unrealistic standards for how many swords they can carry at one time.
Hey, nah, man. I was very upset when I found out I couldn't carry my full Red Dead Redemption loadout.
Hey, I would be very much in favor of a society where every man is expected to carry a sword. I think we would have a more peaceful, more well-ordered society.
Not at first. There would be a period of discontent, but it would be quelled soon.
But I mean, we have been such a society before,
Hey, Edwin.
and I would submit that we are a worse one now.
I kind of like the idea of duels in the sense of, high noon shooting at folks. Mainly because the people that talk the maddest shit are not willing to back up their words with conviction. They're just
And
willing
it's
on the other side of the camera.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was actually just reading day before yesterday about the death of Stephen Decatur, the naval hero who was famously killed in a duel. And around the time he got killed, which was in the early 1820s, I believe, the dueling was so commonplace among American naval officers that they were actually having trouble manning commands because so many dudes were getting killed in tests of honor.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. But there's something to be said there, though.
Oh, there absolutely is something, because it might be extreme from our perspective today, but it's kind of the big difference between a hyper-masculinized society and a hyper-feminized one, like the one we are all currently living in. Because in a hyperly masculinized society, and this goes back also to a story like the caning of Charles Sumner that we were talking about the other week, where you can wrong another man so egregiously that the only way to gain redress of the grievance is by having a contest of arms that may result in the death of one or more of the contestants. But I'll tell you what that does. In a society where stuff like that is commonplace, you wind up with a lot more polite gentlemen.
That's true. That's what I was going to say, is when everyone is armed in the society, you tend to speak a little more politely to your fellow man.
Yep, you're damn right.
I'm trying to troll my own chat.
And sometimes you get the most civility and the most gentility when there is potentially a grave penalty for not behaving that way. And it's not a judicial penalty, it's not a criminal penalty, it is just a thing that gentlemen have decided to settle their grievances in a customary fashion, and that's what they wound up with.
I was about to mention the machete culture in Africa. Are you familiar with how that goes? Africa,
a little bit.
Haiti, some of the South American countries, they utilize machetes kind of like people used to use swords back in the day. Anyway, It's a whole culture over there. There's like, don't be offensive. You get your hands end up pegged to a tree.
How is this a news article? Me answering the door to the recruitment officer 3. This is why we can't have nice things. That's definitely a good portion of it.
Yeah. Richmond, north of Richmond.
Yep, pretty much.
My steak. No, he doesn't like meat. We are both vegan.
What? You heard about the vegan dog, right?
I did not.
Oh, wow. This has been like 2 years ago, maybe longer now. There was a lady who had put together a really big TikTok or Instagram following by showing her vegan diet over the course of a couple of years and how she was slim, fit, yoga instructor, doing Pilates and whatnot. And she had also trained her dog to be vegan. And she said that this dog loves his vegan diet so much he wouldn't even turn if meat was presented. And her chat challenged her on that, and she went and got a half pound of ground beef, set it down, and before she could even get it flat to the table, that dog had eaten half of it. It was fucking beautiful, and you never heard from her again.
And she really didn't think that was going to happen. She thinks a dog is capable of reasoning on the same level as an idiot human vegan.
I can point out some more details in that video specifically, and I might go dig it up just to pick it apart on some future show, this one or another one. It's not really news related, but
because that's another thing that one can't help noticing with the current generation of liberal women, especially, and also to some extent liberal men, childless couples especially. They really go out of their way to anthropomorphize their pets. And pretend that they're people, and pretend that they're parents, and it's the most goddamn creepy thing in the entire world.
Oh, it's so weird to me, man. I mean, first of all, where did the concept of a vegan lifestyle being healthy come from? I'm very curious for this. I mean, first of all, I can't do it myself because I'm allergic to beans, and that wipes out your primary protein, and so I'm stuck with cow, chickens, swine. I dig the swine.
It comes from a dumb surface level liberal desire to not want to be cruel to other living creatures, and it's dumb, but I think that's the kernel of the idea. I mean, there's no actual rational fact based reason why anybody should not want to eat meat, because meat is fucking awesome.
Sorry, I was lost thinking about Ezra over there working in a garden.
I mean, the only reason that we are technologically, industrially sophisticated people today is because we figured out how to start cooking our meat.
Basically,
that's how we unlocked the amino acids that made our brains grow so freakishly large, and that was the nexus that gave us everything else that came after. If we never figure out how to cook our meat, we are still pre-Neanderthal savages right now.
I'll go a step further and say that it wasn't us running across the open plains that did it, but us along the seashore strand. Because there is so much unbelievable available protein in mussels and shells and clams and shellfish of all kinds of different descriptions. And it's so much easier to acquire all of it with fire. Without fire, you can't get any of this stuff. Without fire, you still have most of your full access to your savannah crawling diet. You just crack it open and slurp it out, you know. But when it comes to the sea strand, if you don't have a tool, much like a sharp rock or something, fire will pop open most of the shells and makes all of it edible.
And Queen Bird raises an excellent point. I'm gonna put that one up because I too love my dog very much, but I'm sorry if she gets some kind of ailment that's gonna cost a 4-figure sum to keep her alive for 5 more minutes. Sorry, it's time to go, sweetheart.
I love my dog, dumbass, but he let me tell you what this moron did the other day. He tried to jump up on my bed. Now this dog is 129 pounds of dumb. Right. And I sat down in my chair over here and he heard the squeak of the chair. And when he tried to jump, he tried to look over his shoulder and he dislocated his hip. He flopped against the side of the bed, kind of funny, and just flopped over on the ground and then acted like he was going to bite me, but didn't really do nothing but pull on my arm hair with his teeth. Like, but the whole time he was screaming like somebody was trying to kill him. And I've owned dogs my whole life. I've seen this type of thing happened before, but never so negligently, never ever. And so I took it, pulled his leg back out like you would a professional athlete, gave it a little wiggle and popped right back in. And he just immediately started screaming, looked at me. It was like, sorry, I bit you. It really hurt. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pull your hair.
I'm real sorry. I feel bad, boss.
Yeah. Luckily we have a disability ramp out the back door, so we're able to walk him in and out no problem. And he's pretty much back to moving at full speed now. But yeah, love my dogs, but there's a limit.
So are we close enough to the end that I should play the slideshow and it doesn't matter if we get copyrighted because it's got Beatles in it?
They're gonna take us down.
Yeah, I mean we've got 2.5 minutes left anyway, and that's how long it is.
They might strike us as the Beatles, dude.
Yeah. Well, I've only done one Beatles parody, and they weren't difficult about it. It's a revenue share.
That's a parody. I don't know, dude. Your call. You want to do it? Put it up there. I'm not pressing the button. I'll take the strike.
All right, I will press the button and take a strike if there is a strike. Anyway, this is the thing that my daughter has made for me and Lady Curmudgeon for our respective 50th birthdays, and they were very, very impressed with themselves that they got me to squirt a tear. So.
There are places I remember all my life, though some have changed, some forever, not for better. Some have gone and some remain. All these places have their moments with lovers and friends. I still can recall. Some are dead and some are living. stop and think about them. In my life, I love you more.